Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa, and on behalf of ValueSource, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Peter so that he can begin his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. First off, I want to welcome everybody today to the presentation, Effectively Incorporating Economic Research into Your Valuation Reports. I'll go through the presentation, but during the presentation, if there are questions, comments, please make sure that you type them into the chat box, and Melissa will break in and ask the questions. I want to make sure that I answer any questions that you have. The other thing is, if you look on the handout little box on the GoToMeeting kind of control panel there, you'll see the PDF copy of the presentation materials. Okay, so obviously I can go through the presentation. You can look at the materials and get the exact same information. Okay, so if you have questions on something I'm covering, or if it's something that I haven't covered that you kind of came to the presentation hoping I would, make sure that you ask the question. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that we have. Okay. The other thing, having said that you do have the materials, any of the websites, sources, anything that I talk about today, obviously you don't have to worry about frantically trying to write down all of that information. All the websites and everything are contained actually in the materials. Okay, so first off, we're going to start out with the basic question of why do we need to do research? Okay, and we're going to point back to the standards. Okay, first off, we have our development standards, and let's look at the second one first, the fundamental analysis. Under the fundamental analysis development standard, it points us to look at the economic outlook, okay, basically in general, and the condition within the specific industry, okay. And then I put the other one up there, the reliability of data, the first one, going backwards, I guess, but I put that one up there for the purpose of saying you can rely on information from any source as long as you disclose it, okay. That was one of the changes that came out with the standards when they were completely changed in 2011, and you can use data from any source as long as you disclose it in your report. Okay, you have to be careful, obviously, and this is one of the areas where you have to be careful, and where you could use data from a source that isn't maybe a generally accepted source, or a source that may provide a different look at an industry or something, but it's not a quote-unquote reliable source. So you still need to be careful, even though we have this reliability standard that can be pretty general in its application. Make sure that the industry reports, the economic reports that you're putting together and that you're putting in your valuation reports, make sure that they are reliable. Somebody reading it would say, I understand, I see where they got the information from. I've heard of it before. I think it's reliable. Don't go find some obscure report that you don't even know what group put it together, just because it proves the point that you want to make in your valuation as it pertains to the industry. The other why really is, Revenue Ruling 5960. If you use that as kind of a checklist, if you use the checklists that NACVA has prepared that are in your BV Resource Toolkit, and you can access the BV Resource Toolkit by just signing into the NACVA member portal, and they have a couple of different checklists in there. One of those is the BV development checklist. So as you're going through and beginning the valuation and doing your due diligence, it obviously has an entire section devoted to the national economy, local economy, and then the national and local industry. So we're pointed again from different development checklists. If you use PPC or something like that, they will again point you to the industry and whatnot. So we know why But we need to make sure that we're not, I'll tell you from the beginning and then throughout the presentation today, we need to make sure that we're not using any of this information that we're putting together for these reports. We don't want to use them just as a stagnant, okay, we've got the National Economic Report, let's cross it off the list. Now we have the industry report, cross it off the list. And unfortunately, that's becoming much, much easier and easier to do. And I see a lot of valuation reports, and it can be somebody who is a seasoned valuation professional or somebody that's just getting started. It's really not something that is that I see just with somebody based off of their level of expertise or getting started within the industry or whether they're a seasoned professional. It really affects everybody. And the reason I think it's becoming so common for people to just kind of use this, what I call a checklist approach, to cross the item off the list and not worry about it, is because you don't have to spend a lot of time now procuring this information. It's something that if you put together yourself, if you're doing your valuation report from soup to nuts, you're going to go out, and you probably know the sources that we're going to talk about here in the coming slides, that you can go to get a National Economic Report that's written monthly and literally copy and paste it into your report. And the thing that you spend the most amount of time on, if you read it at all, will be formatting it so that the report fits your report format style. And you can pretty much do the same for the industry as well. You can subscribe to different databases like Key Value Data, or go out and purchase a industry profile, or find one on a trade association website. You can copy and paste it and put it in your report. And again, the lion's share of the time is spent modifying the report and formatting it for presentation purposes. And then you cross the item off the list and move on to the nuts and bolts, which a lot of times we think of in our minds, being numbers people, we think of it as the numbers. And we do this just because Revenue Ruling 5960 says we have to, our standards say that we have to, but we don't get into a lot of detail. Okay, so what I've said, where should it be? Well, again, kind of going back to the standards, is if you're writing a conclusion of value report, and that could be a summary report or a detailed report. I prefer to write a detailed report, and the only reason that I prefer to write that type of a report is because the reader of the report can go to my appendix, which I have all of the NACFA standards, the entire standards and glossary of BV terms in the appendix. They can go to the section it's the third section of my report where I talk about valuation standards, and I state that my report meets NACFA standards, and I point them to the appendix where they can read the entire standards. If they want to go to the appendix, print out the standards, and use that as a checklist to go through my report and see if I've met the standards, I want them to be able to do that, and they can with a detailed report. With a summary report, it leaves it up to your discretion in terms of how many of the different items that are required for a detailed report, how many of those you actually put in your valuation. Okay, so that's a matter of preference. I think with a summary report, there's definitely no reason not to use it, but for me, I don't think it takes me that much longer, and I don't think it would take any analyst that much longer to put together a report format that has everything in it and just write the report to that level every time. And it's something that, when I share, I have a sample report that I share with clientele. If they don't really understand what a valuation is, and that's one thing a lot of attorneys, other CPAs, if you're a CPA, and definitely business owners, they don't understand what a valuation is, especially a business owner. They figure, they can give you a couple years of financials, a couple hours later, you can send them an email with the number on it. They don't understand what the standards are and stuff like that. And I think the best way to show them is to send them a sample report of your work. And then we can go through the different sections in the report, side by side with the standards, and I can show them these are all of the items that we need to put in there. And one of those is the industry information and the economic information. Okay, when I'm talking about economic, I'm talking about what's the general health of the national economy, and then what's the general health of the local economy. Okay, and we want to have both of those in there if it's relevant. I mean, if the company operates in a finite geographic region, I believe it's relevant to have both the national and local economic information in there, because that's where the customers reside, and we want to look at what demand factors we can kind of get around for that company, that defined that company, and look at the strength or weakness of those. And really, I think the easiest way to do it is for your local economy or wherever the company happens to operate to benchmark that against the national. Okay, and then obviously the industry is the industry. Are they a restaurant? Are they a manufacturing company? And you try and pull the same information both locally and nationally, and it becomes, on a national scale, it's a little easier to get a good picture of the industry unless the company happens to be in a very, very specialized niche industry. But it becomes a little bit more difficult, or a lot more difficult really in practice, if you're doing it correctly, to write up a very clear synopsis of the company's industry at a local level at your date of valuation, which is what you need to do. Okay, we'll get into that. It's a little bit easier than you think, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. So back to what's on the screen. A well-written conclusion of value should include, an overview, and I say a concise overview. It's not one of those things we always think more is better. When I'm teaching other courses, I always get the question of how long should this be. I had a class that I teach at the University of Utah, a valuation class in the Graduate School of Business, and I had a student last year that was absolutely adamant to have me tell him how long the valuation should be. And the material we teach there is just from NACFA's training center, so it's the same case study that everybody received when they went through NACFA's training. And he was adamant after every class we talk about different module, different section. He wanted to know how long. I said, I don't care how long. For me personally, if I'm reading your report, I would rather it be as short as possible, but I would rather have the information that's in there be relevant. I've seen reports where there's an industry report, and maybe they'll take, if you're familiar with the IBIS World reports that are pretty long, 30, 40, 50 pages long, copy and paste that entire report into the valuation report, and it's talking about, the macro industry, international trends, national trends, and it's not getting down at all into a local geographic region whatsoever. And that's the extent of the industry research. Then I've seen others that are a page long, or significantly shorter than 30 to 50 pages long, where the analyst has gone in, pulled the relevant data from an IBIS report, pulled the relevant data from whatever other sources are relevant, and written a report that gives me an actual idea of what is the strength of the industry, what are the historical trends that have happened in that industry nationally and where the company operates, and what's the forecast. That's the big thing. What is it going to look like going forward? And we'll see why that's important in a moment. So taking a step back from the standard side and from the valuation side, I want to just go over,
Peter?
basically, do we have a question?
Yes, we have a question.
Okay.
Where do you get a local economy report?
Okay. We're going to get into that. So just hold on. Good question, but just hold on tight and we'll get to it, I promise. First thing, I think, take 30 minutes, go to this website. It's Economic Principles. It was put together by Ray Dalio, that founded Bridgewater, the private equity firm. And he's put together this, it's almost like a cartoon, if you will, but it's a presentation on how the economy works. And this framework that he presents in this 30-minute video here, it will give you a good refresher or a good understanding of the national economy as a whole, what its component parts are, and then how everything kind of works together, and what are the kind of macro, what are the trends that you want to look for, what are the indicators that you should be tracking. Okay, so go to that website, pull that. Also on that website, he's taken and written up about 300-page PDF file book that goes through all the information that he's talking about in the 30-minute video. And I would suggest download it and at least, click through it. Like I said, it's a good review, and it's from the information that's in there, it's going to give you all the indicators that you're going to need, and it will be logical for you to follow that if you're going over these indicators within this industry, it will help you to go through and put together that local side that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Okay, so one of the first things that I do when I get to evaluation is I click on valuationresources.com, which is free. It's a free site, just something that I've bookmarked. I click right on it. I click on industry resources. There's a lot of information on there, but I click on industry resources, and it will give you basic snapshot of everything that's available within that industry. Okay, so it'll tell you all of the, basically pay industry reports that are out there. It will tell you, the other nice thing, it will tell you all of the trade associations, all the compensation studies they have, all the industry studies they have. And it's something that when I'm putting together my document request, it gives me kind of a leg up, so I already understand, okay, here are the major trade associations within the industry, and I can go back to my client and say, number one, do you belong to these trade associations? And then take it a step further, and you know which reports to ask for. Do you subscribe to the compensation report, the state of the industry report, that sort of thing? And if not, or if they do or do not, I can take it a step further when we're doing the research and call the trade associations and say, do you have anything that's local? That's one way to do it. Okay, call the trade associations, see if they have something local. And even if they don't have something on their website, they may have something internal that they're willing to share with you. Have had a lot of success doing it that way. Okay, benefits of using this, obviously, like I said, it's free. It provides links to all of the major trade associations, links to reasonably priced compensation studies. Okay, and then the information that they point you to in terms of like the canned industry reports, you basically have access to those anyway. If you have access to key value data, you have access to the first research industry profiles. Okay, so you already have access to that anyway. What I'm looking for mainly here is what trade associations are available and that sort of thing. Okay, so industry, economic research, outside of, now we've pulled the, let's say, the first research industry report for the industry. That's a starting point. We can't look at that as that's the end game. We copy and paste that, format it in our report, and then we move on to what we consider, quote unquote, the important section of the valuation. This is just as every bit of as important as the quantitative pieces. Okay, so we may want to go look at the Federal Reserve Bulletin. For sure, look at the beige book, the summary of commentary of conditions by Federal Reserve District. Then look at your local Federal Reserve Bank, or the Federal Reserve Bank that's local to where your company operates. You can look at the Encyclopedia of Associations. But like I said before, if you just go to Valuation Resources, you already have links to all of the major trade associations by industry. The other thing is talk to your client. Your client a lot of times can be a great help, and a lot of times they're kind of the gatekeeper to help you get the information that the trade associations have. And that's really a big help, not in terms just as much as the economic research, but with the compensation studies that are available a lot of times and that maybe even be free at the trade association level. Okay, so a lot of times my document request or my valuation checklist that I send out to the client, and I've mentioned this before, that's something that I have already gone out, looked at the industry, we've clicked around a little bit, we know what the trade associations are, so we can ask about membership by name, and then we can also go through and ask for whatever studies that we already know are out there, and that helps a lot. Anything you can do with your document request to really sell the fact to your client that it's customized to them and that you need every single item on that valuation checklist is a huge time saver. That's the thing that I find to be a huge bottleneck, is the client will send me the financials, ignore the rest of the information on the valuation request, and I point back to the engagement letter, which I state and say, look, the clock doesn't start, number one, till we have all of the information, and number two, we've said in the engagement letter that the document request list is customized to your particular company that we're valuing. So it's not a wish list of, for the client that they can say, I don't think this is relevant or not. It's something that we need every single thing that's on there. Okay. So now some of the different national and local economic research. First place I would start is with the KVD, Key Value Data National Economic Report. Okay. It's published monthly. It's highly customizable. It's already in Word or Excel. Okay. Provides a good overview, which again is a starting point. And then it gives you a deep drill into all of the different sectors of the economy. So you're going to download that entire report, look at the overview, and then based off of your understanding of the company and what drives your subject company, you're going to go in to some of the different more detailed sections of their report and pull that information and include it in your final overview of the national economy. Okay. On their website, they also have links to the BizMiner industry metro reports. I've never really used those. I usually start with the next bullet there is to go to the beige book from the Federal Reserve, which is generally, it's the general term is the beige book. If you look on their website, it's called the Summary of Commentary on Current Economic Conditions by Federal Reserve District. Okay, again, easy to copy and paste right from their page into your report, but that's a starting point. Okay, we want to move deeper down and figure out what the strength is of the subject economy. We're going to look at the local Federal Reserve Bank. Public business universities are generally a treasure trove of information that is, number one, it's timely. Number two, it's available on the given industry, or on the given geographic region, and they're free. Generally, it's free. So if you go to your local public business school, generally they'll have a Bureau of Economic and Business Research there. That's another great place to find, bookmark it, and keep going back into there. Okay. So by now, you should be able to answer this question. Okay, are we going to copy and paste, or are we going to customize? Should we just simply copy and paste the information into the report? Should we customize it? Should we just completely outsource the research process to think, okay, if I have to go to this level of detail, I don't want to do it. I want someone else to do it. Or should we just say, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this. I'm only doing calculation reports, and the agreed upon procedure is we're not looking at the industry. Okay. If we're doing conclusions, it has to be customized. It is, the valuation process as a whole it's scalable. This is something that you can outsource. You can have a college intern help. You can have somebody, key value data, write the reports for you, completely customized. You can bring somebody in and have them do it, but it does need to be customized. Okay. So my advice is start with the off-the-shelf industry and economic reports. Okay, they've done a lot of the legwork for you. In terms of the National Economic Report, all the legwork is done for you. You just need to go into the different sections of the key value data report and kind of tailor it around to your valuation that you're working on. Okay, and then make sure the information is timely and it represents your data valuation that you're looking at, and then fit the geographic region to where your company operates. So don't just pull the first research report and it talks about national trends and leave it at that. Drill down. Now sometimes, and most of the time, you are not going to find the same level of detail at the local level. Maybe your company only operates in your state or in your metro area. You're not going to find a fully, nice, polished report for that area. But what you're going to do is go back to that economic principles type information, and you're going to look at the indicators at the local level, which are available. You're going to look at those indicators to paint a picture of that industry. If it's a single-family home builder, you can go look at home permit data by city, by county, by metro area, by state, by region, whatever you want. One of the best sources that I've found to do that is this Economagic. It's basically an amalgamation of the Bureau of Labor Statistics data and the US Census Bureau data and the Federal Reserve data on one website. So you go to Economagic and you can just scroll down by subject or by information, and then you can click on it and get the information. So number one, it shows you what information is available. It's a lot better than going to the Census Bureau website, hoping the information is available and clicking around and trying to find it. With the Economagic data, if you want to go pull the actual reports from the census, at least you go in and you can run a search on their website asking for the correct information. Okay. So bringing it together in terms of where's the information going to be used. Okay. Well, your site visit and management interview, if you go in there with a basic understanding of the industry, you can ask the right questions. Ask if trends in the industry are affecting the company. Okay. Obviously, in your financial analysis, if you see that the company's revenues are declining, is that in line with, or is it going against with what's going on within the industry? Okay. When you're looking at normalization adjustments, that's going to help there. Determination of the most appropriate approach or method. And what I'm talking about here is, are we going to use a capitalization of historical earnings, or are we going to use a projection model? Okay. Your industry data will tell you that. I mean, in 2008, if you were valuing an auto dealership, would you use historical or would you use a projection model? Well, if you looked at the industry had fallen off a cliff at the end of 2008. You would want to use a projection model. And the industry data is always going to help you determine that factor. You can look at the strength of the industry, you can look at the strength of the economy, you can see if it's undergoing a significant change in your data valuation, and it will help you make that determination. Okay. Another thing it will help you with is determining the accuracy of market projections. Okay. And then helping you justify different subjective factors, most importantly of which is company-specific risk. Okay. So make sure that the information in the economic report helps you along the way within your valuation. It's something that when you're talking about something that is qualitative or subjective, you can use it as a foundation on which to build your argument. Okay. So conclusion, pull when you're done with your report as a whole, make sure you pull out the relevant sections, pull out the industry information and the economic information and store those in a database, make sure that they're easy to find. Because at least the local economic information, you're going to use the next time you value a company that's in that same geographic location. If you're going to value a company in that industry, again, at the same data valuation, or even if not, you have a footprint of what you've done before. It can save you a ton of time the next time you go into that. And 2, 3, 5 years down the road, you've got a nice database of all of these reports that you've used in the past. Okay, so make sure that you can easily find that information. Second off, make sure that you're setting up a nice bookmark file in your web browser, because that's a huge help as well. Okay, we're just a minute over, but if there are questions, I'll stick around and answer any questions that we have.
Peter, so far there's no other questions, just a reference to not having access to the information unless you're a student.
Oh, for the university stuff?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that too much. A lot of times you can get into the information that I'm talking about is generally public. I'm not talking about, a lot of times I know that the library sources and some of those, obviously, yes, you do have to be a student. But what I'm talking about is the information that they put out as a whole. A lot of times the local business school will put out kind of a state of the state, if you will, an economic overview of the state. There should be some source within every large public university that's putting out some information that you do not have to be a student to gain access to.
And that's all. I'm not sure if there are any other questions.
Okay, well, I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody for joining us this